Okay, cool. Zykus, thank you for the 10, bro. He says, yo, if J. Cole drops a classic album by the end of this year, the number one spot in rap will be in question, especially if everybody rocks with it. Okay, I'm going to say this. If J. Cole, I'm being hypothetical, if he dropped a Forest Hills Drive type album by the end of this year, I think there would really honestly be a conversation about who's the hottest rapper at the moment. And by the way, I don't think J. Cole has been in that conversation. Like, no disrespect. Like, he's always top three. Like, again, when I'm saying not in the conversation, I think Drake, because these guys are just not as active, Drake's been number one. And we don't even really compare him or whatever he's dropping with Kendrick. We just like, oh, this is just another Drake. But if J. Cole shows that he's down to put out a project, he's already rapping like that. He's rapping like that on First Person Shooter. He's rapping like that on motherfucking Secret Recipe. He comes with a fucking album that's better than arguably every Drake album this year. We might be having a different discussion. Now, granted, I would love if that is even a possibility because it shows that he's down to compete. Whatever I told you about whether it's J. Cole or even like Kendrick, I don't think them niggas want to compete. I don't think they want to compete with Drake. You feel me? I think they do their own thing. They're on that, They're on that like new age NBA player shit where it's like not about competition. It's like, I'm on my own path, my own journey. I'm just like, I'm as long as I'm happy. All right, whatever, man. But if J. Cole did some shit like that, it would be a conversation of who had the best year. I do believe. All right. Let me see. MDA. We read MDH 251. I didn't read this yet. Thank you for the 5, bro. He says, yo, Drake gave his life to music and he's nervous about the end nearing. I'm wondering why he would think it's the end nearing when I think genuinely we're not really even having a conversation like, yo, his run is ending because there's no incumbent. There's no runner-up. There's no second in command, right? Like it's the same two dudes, Kendrick and Cole, and they don't ever seem hungry enough. Obviously, as I said, Cole seemed a little bit more hungry now. So who's like, how could he fall off? Like if you're number one and nobody wants to be number one or nobody's in competition to be number one, even if you fell off, you just fell off from a previous version of yourself, not fell off in the culture. Okay. Chris Jones, he says, all right, we read that already. He says, Drake need to kick Yachty out of the OVO lab. Chivalry, thank you for that. I'll be in Florida soon too. Moon Music, somebody named Moon Music donated £5. He says, yo, Joe fumbled that Drake interview. This is your time to get that exclusive act. Well, here's the thing. If you lived, like obviously everybody wants a Drake interview, but if you lived and operated accordingly by saying, if I piss this guy off, I won't get an interview. You're like, I'm going to be honest with you, that's more manipulative because that artist is going to hold the fact that you want to interview over your head and he's going to get you to do whatever the fuck he wants you to do, right? Because he's going to be like, oh, yeah, now we're going to do this interview. So now you're trying not to critique him objectively because you're like, I don't want to piss him off. I want to get this interview. So again, I don't believe in fumbling an interview. Like Drake is going to interview with whoever the hell he wants to interview with, right? Like did Hip Hop fumble an interview when he went to go do one with Bobby Althoff and Casey or Caleb Presley? No, he wanted to do that. So I don't necessarily think there's a fumble. And by the way, here's the thing too. Joe having his opinion about the album, you know what would be the best interview right now? Sitting down with Joe. Go sit down with Joe. Actually have somebody who is passionate and opposing to what you think. But we've never seen top rappers do that, right? Like, when's the last time Rihanna did an interview? Like, Jay-Z barely does interviews. When's the last time you've seen a hip-hop interview from even, like, Kendrick or Cole? Right? So, again, I can't say a nigga fumbled an interview he didn't have. It's different if it was like, yo, Drake said he's doing an interview next week, and he says some wild shit this week. Okay, you fumbled. Briscoe the King, thank you for 10. He says, yo, Drake album would be more heralded if he would trim it down to 13 to 16. By the way, I seen somebody said that to me. I guess they wanted me to like, chop the album down or try to create a really good album. I guess that they could see my A&R skills and my taste if we were probably going to take songs from the last year from Drake. But yeah, I do think, 13 to 16, that's the sweet spot for Drake. By the way, somebody says Views, CLB, and Dogs have the same issue. Too many fillers that take away from the greatness of the hits. That might be true. That might be true. By the way, we should get... Actually, I'll talk about the sales afterwards. Isaiah JP, thank you for the 5. He says, Lil Act should have been in the studio with Drake instead of Yachty. Hey, listen, I'm not saying necessarily me. I do think somebody who is, you can challenge him enough and you also know what peak Drake is. You know what I mean? Because the challenge for Drake is, can you ever, it's like Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt ran that 9.56 or whatever the case is, or 5.8. I would hope that he would be trying to meet that again or break his own record. I don't compare Drake with the field, honestly, for the most part. Jessa Queston. They say, listen to J. Cole's verse on Secret Recipe again and tell me he ain't taking shots at Drake. He's literally talking about older rappers making TikTok music, chasing the youth for relevance. I kind of thought that for a second, but I was just like, why would he be dissing Drake on his own song? Or why would he be dissing? I mean, there's even a part in First Person Shooter. I'm like, but why would he, number one, be dissing Drake on his own song, First Person Shooter? But why then would he be dissing Drake on Secret Recipe with Drake's best friend, Yachty, right? Javon Lee, he says, Gunna versus Drake new albums. What's slapping? Y'all be the judge to that. Big Gucci Dame, thank you for the 5. He says, is Spotify robbing artists with them doing discovery mode and taking 30% of their royalties for that song in exchange for the artists to get more streams? I don't think Spotify is robbing artists. I think Spotify is starting on the future, which is, if these days a label could only promise you that they could possibly influence a playlist to playlist your music, can't you just avoid that by just signing a deal with the streaming services themselves? And even if you have to give them some of the revenue, at least they're incentivized to promote you. And now you don't have to deal with the label, which, by the way, a label is going to take way more than 30%, right? Muhammad says, thank you for that too. He says, no cap, Yachty got to see you on that fade. Why? Hard Deep S, thank you for the 5. He says, Fat D is, by the way, I swore Drake was going to have the album call 4, like the number 4, right? For all the dogs, because the abbreviation of Fat D is crazy, okay? But Fat D is fire. Listen to each song individually throughout the day. Motherfuckers listen to a 1-hour album in one sitting and call it trash. By the way, today's like day 3 or day 4. The album is sounding better than it sounded that night. I'm going to be honest, okay? Okay, cool.